Grand Admiral Sixtel stood before the massive holographic display, his scaled fingers tapping against the polished command rail of the hegemony flagship, Eternal Dominion. The blue-green planet rotated slowly in the projection, surrounded by a cluttered orbital space that spoke of primitive technological advancement. Behind him, the bridge crew maintained absolute silence, waiting for Earth's response to their ultimatum. None came. "Repeat the transmission," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 successful conquests. The communications officer, a thin membrane species from the Cygnus arm, pulsed with uncertainty as she complied. The standard declaration of Imperial dominance boomed through the vast network of communications satellites circling the planet. "People of Earth, you stand before the mighty galactic hegemony of the Seven Suns. Your civilization has been deemed worthy of absorption into our eternal empire. Submit now and retain limited autonomy under our benevolent rule. Resist and face extinction. You have one planetary rotation to respond." The message echoed across every frequency, in every human language their linguistic computers had decoded. Yet the response remained the same. Silence. "Analysis," Sixtel demanded, his secondary eyes narrowing as he studied the planet's night side, where city lights traced the outlines of continents. "Most peculiar, Admiral," his senior analyst reported, scrolling through streams of data. "Their global communication networks remain active. Their military vessels maintain standard patrol patterns. Their orbital satellites continue routine operations, but there's no acknowledgement of our presence. Not even encrypted channels show increased activity." Through the holographic display, Sixtel observed a university campus in what humans called Massachusetts. Their long-range sensors focused on a lecture hall where Dr. Amanda Miller, Earth's leading quantum physicist according to their intelligence, was teaching a class about theoretical spacetime manipulation. "Magnify audio," he commanded. Dr. Miller's voice came through clearly. "Now, considering the Alcubierre framework for faster-than-light travel, we must account for the quantum foam destabilization at the bubble's edge. Can anyone tell me the primary challenge this presents for maintaining structural integrity?" A student raised her hand. "The temporal shearing effect on the navigation systems." "Excellent observation, Jennifer. Now let's explore how we might compensate for that." Sixtel's facial scales flickered with disbelief. The woman was calmly discussing the very principles that powered his fleet's engines, as if 1,000 warships weren't hovering at the edge of her solar system. "Show me their military responses," he ordered. The display shifted to the North American continent. At Peterson Space Force Base, Major Jessica Thompson was overseeing a routine satellite calibration. The sensors caught her glancing up at the sky, the corner of her mouth twitching in what their xenopsychologists identified as amusement before returning to her work. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "we're detecting movement in their orbital field." Sixtel's head snapped up. "Finally. Combat stations." "No, sir. They're adjusting their spaced telescope arrays. All of them. Simultaneously. The officer paused, double-checking his readings. "They're turning them away from us. By exactly 1 meter." The bridge fell silent again, but this time the silence came from the hegemony crew. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to the Imperial declaration with such calculated indifference. Even the most powerful civilizations they'd encountered had at least attempted negotiation. "Show me their global information networks," Sixtel commanded, his voice slightly less steady than before. Data streamed across the displays. Social media posts about local weather, stock market transactions continuing their normal patterns, entertainment channels broadcasting their usual content. The only noticeable change was a slight uptick in ice cream sales across the planet. As Sixtel watched Dr. Miller conclude her lecture with a homework assignment due next week, he felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of military command. Fear. These humans weren't shocked, weren't panicking, weren't even bothering to acknowledge the greatest armada in known space. They were simply going about their lives as if the hegemony's presence was so inconsequential it didn't even warrant a response. For the first time in his long career, Grand Admiral Zixtal wondered if perhaps the hegemony hadn't just made a terrible mistake. Junior Officer Kix couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something obvious. 2 weeks into their standoff with Earth, he found himself obsessively reviewing the sensor data during his night shift aboard the Eternal Dominion. The human's behavior defied every strategic model in the hegemony's vast database of conquered species. Computer, replay orbital adjustments from the past 48 hours, he muttered, his third eye twitching from fatigue. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Earth's dense network of satellites and telescopes. As he watched, something caught his attention. At precisely 300 hours Earth UTC, every single observatory had adjusted their aim by 1 meter. Not one by one, but simultaneously, as if choreographed. Senior officer on deck. The announcement jolted Kix from his observations as Admiral Zixtal entered the monitoring station. Report, the Admiral demanded, his scales unusually dull from lack of rest. Sir, I've noticed a pattern. Kix swallowed hard, knowing how many officers had already been demoted for seeing patterns where none existed. The humans are moving their observation equipment in perfect synchronization. Instead of dismissing him, Zixtal's secondary eyes narrowed. Show me. The display expanded, revealing the coordinated movements of thousands of telescopes. More disturbing still was what Kix had discovered next. Sir, they're not just moving in sync. They're moving away from specific sectors of our fleet, exactly 3 minutes before we reposition our ships to those sectors. Across the vast distance, their sensors focused on Major Jessica Thompson's routine maintenance work at NASA's Primary Control Center. She hummed an old Earth song, the sound of silence, according to their cultural database, while making minute adjustments to satellite trajectories. Ma'am, one of her technicians called out, the Hubble Legacy just requested another micro-adjustment. Approved, Thompson replied, not looking up from her coffee mug, which bore the text, keep calm and don't look up. Admiral Zixtal felt his facial scales ripple with unease. Show me their other space operations. The display shifted to the International Space Station, where Commander Rachel Anderson was conducting what appeared to be a standard spacewalk. She worked on an old communications array, her movements casual and unhurried. Interesting design choice they made with their shield harmonics, she commented to her colleague, her words carried clearly through their surveillance systems. Kind of reminds me of that paper we published in 42 about theoretical energy dispersion patterns. You remember that one, Steve? The one we wrote for that science fiction anthology. Lieutenant Stephen Martinez replied, adjusting something that looked suspiciously like a targeting array disguised as a weather sensor. Yeah, funny how these things work out. In the depths of space, Zixtal's mighty fleet hung motionless, its crew growing increasingly unsettled by Earth's continued indifference. Their sensors recorded countless similar conversations across the planet, each one seemingly innocent yet loaded with disturbing implications. Sir, Kix ventured, I've been analyzing their entertainment broadcasts from the past century. Every single weakness in our fleet's design was theoretically discussed in their fictional scientific papers and media, some of them with disturbing accuracy. The Admiral's reply was interrupted by a priority alert. Their long-range scanners had detected a sudden energy spike from what was supposedly a defunct satellite near Luna. By the time they focused their instruments on it, the reading had vanished, and the satellite appeared dormant once again. Message from Earth, sir, the communications officer announced, her membrane vibrating with anticipation. Zixtal straightened. Finally, put it through. The message was brief, text only, from NASA's Public Relations Department. Due to scheduled maintenance, some of our older satellites may display unusual energy signatures. We apologize for any concern this may cause to our extraterrestrial visitors. Have a nice day. In the ensuing silence, Junior Officer Kix watched his admiral's scales fade to an almost ghostly pale. They both knew that no species had ever referred to the hegemony's mighty armada as mere visitors before. On Earth, Major Thompson took another sip of her coffee, adjusted one more satellite by exactly 1 meter, and continued humming her song about silence. "You need to see this, Admiral." The hegemony's chief intelligence analyst, Master Decoder Vix, projected a 30-year-old academic paper onto the command center's main screen. The title read, "Theoretical Vulnerabilities in Quantum-Shifted Shield Harmonics," a science fiction study by Professor Robert Bob Walker. Paged. Admiral Zixtal felt his scales contract as he read through the document. The paper, published in a casual science fiction magazine called Tomorrow's Defense Quarterly, outlined the exact resonance frequency vulnerability present in the hegemony's most advanced shield systems, a vulnerability they'd only discovered and classified 2 years ago. "There's more," Vix continued, her tendrils writhing with nervous energy. "Thousands more. All published openly, all dismissed as entertainment or theoretical physics speculation." The display filled with hundreds of papers, each authored by seemingly ordinary humans. A high school physics teacher in Nebraska had perfectly described the waste heat signature of their cloaking systems. A retired engineer in Florida had published a speculative essay about targeting the exact weak point in their quantum communication arrays. "Show me this, Professor Walker," Zixtal ordered. The holographic display shifted to a small university in Montana, where Professor Robert Walker was grading papers in his office. The elderly man occasionally glanced up at the sky through his window, a subtle smile playing at the corners of his mouth. A student knocked on his door. "Professor, I had a question about your paper from '95, the one about theoretical alien propulsion systems." "Ah, yes," Walker replied, his smile widening. "The one about microfractures in tachyon containment fields. Quite relevant these days, isn't it? Have a seat, Jenny." In the hegemony flagship, Zixtal's secondary heart began to race. That paper had described a critical flaw in their engine design, one they'd spent decades trying to eliminate. "Sir," Vix interrupted, "we've detected unusual activity at their lunar research station." The display shifted to show Dr. Mark Reynolds, Director of Lunar Operations, conducting what appeared to be a routine equipment test. He spoke casually into his comm unit. "Hey Bob, remember that game we used to play in grad school? The one about predicting alien invasion responses. Funny how some things come full circle." Professor Walker's chuckle carried clearly through their surveillance. "Still got those old simulation results. Filed them right next to the coffee maker. Been an interesting read lately." The hegemony's tactical officers suddenly straightened. "Admiral, energy spike from the lunar surface." But when they focused their sensors on the location, they found only a modest research facility, its power readings completely normal. Dr. Reynolds could be seen making a fresh pot of coffee, the promised simulation results clearly visible on a worn manila folder beside the machine. "Analysis of their academic networks complete," Vix reported. "Every major university on Earth has been publishing similar papers for decades. They're all connected through something called peer review, a system we initially dismissed as simple academic procedure. The display showed hundreds of connections between researchers, each paper building on the last, creating a vast web of knowledge that just happened to perfectly outline every weakness in the hegemony's military technology. "It's not just the universities," another analyst added. "Their entertainment industry, their gaming simulations, even their children's science projects. They'd been thinking through every possible scenario of alien contact for generations." Admiral Zixtal watched as Professor Walker pulled up another paper on his computer, "Hypothetical Countermeasures to Alien Invasion Scenarios, a Multi-Generational Analysis." The publication date read April 1947. "Sir," Vix said quietly, "I don't think they've been ignoring us. I think they've been waiting for us. For a very, very long time." In his Montana office, Professor Walker took a sip from his mug. Labeled, "I want to believe we got this covered," and continued grading papers about theoretical alien weapon systems that matched the hegemony's classified designs with disturbing precision. Behind him, a poster on his wall showed a simple equation: preparation plus patience equals peace. The silence of Earth's response suddenly felt less like ignorance and more like the quiet confidence of a species that had done their homework thoroughly. Fire. Admiral Zixtel's command cut through the tense atmosphere of the bridge. After 3 weeks of maddening silence, the hegemony would demonstrate its power. The target, an uninhabited section of Earth's Sahara Desert. The kinetic strike weapon launched perfectly, its quantum-enhanced trajectory calculated to the microsecond. On screens throughout the fleet, the projectile streaked toward Earth's atmosphere, carrying enough energy to create a crater visible from orbit. In a weather monitoring station nestled in the Colorado Rockies, Colonel Emily Martinez watched the incoming strike on her atmospheric disturbance display. She took a slow sip from her steaming cup of hot chocolate, topped with tiny marshmallows arranged in what coincidentally looked like a targeting grid. "Hey Dave," she called out to her colleague, "remember that simulation we ran last month? The one about high-altitude particle dispersal?" Lieutenant David Thompson glanced up from his crossword puzzle. "The one we published in Hypothetical Defense Quarterly, as a thought experiment." "That's the one." She pressed a single button on her console, labeled simply Weather Adjustment Protocol. "Might want to watch this. For science, of course." The hegemony's projectile hit Earth's upper atmosphere at precisely 15:42:07 local time. What should have been the beginning of a devastating impact instead became something entirely different. The weapon simply dissolved, its energy dissipating harmlessly into the stratosphere in a brief display of aurora-like lights. On the Eternal Dominion's bridge, chaos erupted. Impossible. The weapons officer's scales had turned pale gray. The kinetic penetrator just disappeared. Zixtel finished, his voice hollow. "How?" Junior Officer Kix, recently promoted for his pattern recognition skills, cleared his throat. "Sir, you might want to see this." The main display showed a tweet from the National Weather Service. "Unusual atmospheric phenomenon observed over North Africa. Note, this may cause a temporary increase in rainbow formation. Grab your cameras." Moments later, social media exploded with photos of the ethereal lights. Humans called it beautiful. They shared pictures, made memes, and #AlienLightShow began trending globally. Ice cream sales spiked another 15%, with particular demand for a flavor called Cosmic Swirl. "Admiral," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface." Finally, Zixtel thought. Finally, they respond. The message was a brief email from Colonel Martinez to the local Parks and Recreation Department. Successful test of new Aurora generation system. Minimal environmental impact. Proceeding with scheduled afternoon coffee break. In the Colorado station, Martinez leaned back in her chair, admiring the colorful atmospheric display. "Pretty," she commented, adding another marshmallow to her hot chocolate. "Though I think we could have made it more purple." Energy dispersal was a bit sloppy on the eastern edge, Thompson agreed, returning to his crossword. 7 across. Theoretical defense against orbital bombardment, 8 letters. "Try prepared," Martinez suggested with a slight smile. The hegemony's sensors detected a subtle power surge from what they'd classified as an abandoned satellite platform near Jupiter. By the time they focused their instruments on it, the reading had vanished, but the satellite had rotated exactly 1 degree toward their fleet. "Sir," Kix reported, his voice strained, "I found something in their historical records. In 1983, a 12-year-old student won their science fair competition with a project titled Theory of Kinetic Energy Dispersal in Upper Atmosphere Conditions. The student's name was Emily Martinez. Admiral Zixtel watched the humans continue their daily routines, taking pictures of the lights his failed weapon had created, sharing jokes about alien light shows, and going about their business as if one of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy hadn't just been neutralized by what appeared to be a weather monitoring station's coffee break protocol. "Sir," his tactical officer ventured, "should we attempt another demonstration?" "No," Zixtol replied, watching Colonel Martinez add a final marshmallow to her hot chocolate in the perfect shape of their fleet's formation. "I believe they've demonstrated quite enough for one day." Stream segment 749 of Alien Defense Scenarios with Captain Michael Mike Anderson, Master Decoder Vix commanded. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a casual streaming studio setup. The host, a retired Navy SEAL turned media personality, sat comfortably in what humans called a gaming chair. "Welcome back, Defenders." Mike's voice carried the easy confidence that had made his show inexplicably popular. "Today we're wargaming a scenario submitted by Dr. Linda Peters from JPL. What if an alien fleet used quantum-shifted shield harmonics? Let's break it down." Admiral Zixtol watched in growing horror as the streamer methodically dismantled the exact defensive formations currently deployed by his fleet. "Notice how the shield matrices would create a cascade vulnerability here." Mike highlighted a section of his digital model. "Any tachyon-based weapon system would need to compensate by." He proceeded to describe, in perfect detail, the classified weakness that had plagued hegemony ships for centuries. "Sir," Junior Officer Kix reported, "this stream aired 3 years ago. It has 6 million views and thousands of comments, each adding additional tactical analysis. The display split to show hundreds of similar channels. Theoretical Xenotech with Dr. Thompson, Space Defense Gaming Hour. What if they came tomorrow? Each one explored different aspects of alien invasion scenarios, crowdsourcing solutions through what appeared to be entertainment. "Show me their movie industry analysis," Zixtol ordered, his scales now a permanent shade of pale gray. The screen filled with clips from centuries of human science fiction. Each decade built upon the last, creating an evolving database of defensive strategies. Films from the 1950s predicted basic shield configurations. By the 1980s, they were exploring advanced quantum mechanics. Modern streaming shows casually discussed concepts that were considered state secrets in most advanced civilizations. "Admiral." Vix's tendrils twisted in distress. "I'm detecting a pattern in their global entertainment networks. The humans have been using their media as a distributed think tank. Every book, movie, and game is peer-reviewed by millions for tactical viability." On Earth, Mike Anderson was starting his latest stream. Today's scenario comes from an interesting observation by one of our viewers. They noticed some unusual quantum signatures at the edge of our solar system. Let's explore potential response strategies. His viewer count suddenly jumped by several million. The chat filled with remarkably specific questions about shield harmonics and tachyon dispersion patterns. "Interesting suggestion from Lieutenant Rodriguez in the comments," Mike noted, highlighting a message. "Yes, that exact frequency would theoretically disrupt any quantum-based cloaking system. Let's model that." In the Colorado station, Colonel Martinez watched the stream on her second monitor while adjusting what appeared to be climate sensors. "Good catch, Rodriguez," she muttered, making a minor adjustment to her equipment. Somewhere in orbit, a supposedly defunct satellite shifted by exactly 1 meter. "Sir," Kix's voice cracked, "their rating systems, the likes and comments, they're not just engagement metrics. They're vote-counting systems for tactical analysis. The most effective strategies naturally rise to the top through social media algorithms." The display showed clips from popular movies spanning decades. Each one had explored different aspects of the very situation the hegemony now found itself in. Humanity had been preparing responses to every possible scenario, disguised as entertainment, voted on by billions. "Admiral," Vix reported, "Captain Anderson's current stream. He's describing our fleet's exact current formation." And the comments, "They're solving our defensive algorithms in real time. As a game." On screen, Mike Anderson took a sip from his "I want to believe in proper fleet tactics" mug. Remember, folks, this is all theoretical. But if you're watching from somewhere around Saturn's orbit, feel free to drop a comment. We love audience participation. The viewer count ticked up by 1. Junior Officer Kix's third eye widened in realization. Sir, I think we just joined their think tank. Admiral Zixtal watched as humanity casually crowdsourced the complete tactical dismantling of his fleet through what appeared to be a casual gaming stream. The silence of their official channels suddenly felt less like ignorance and more like the quiet amusement of a species that had been solving this problem as a form of entertainment for generations. Lieutenant Kate Williams floated in space beside the International Space Station, supposedly conducting routine maintenance on a damaged solar panel. Her movements were unhurried as she made microscopic adjustments to what appeared to be a simple power coupling. "Control, this is Williams," she radioed casually. "Completing calibration sequence Delta 7. Also, that weird light show from earlier made my morning coffee break much more interesting." In the Hegemony flagship's command center, Junior Officer Kix nearly jumped from his station. "Sir, energy spike detected across their orbital plane." Admiral Zixtal watched as thousands of pieces of Earth's orbital debris shifted position simultaneously. Each movement was barely detectable, exactly 1 meter in seemingly random directions. But there was nothing random about it. "Analysis complete," Master Decoder Vix announced, her tendrils writhing with agitation. "Sir, we've been tracking their orbital debris wrong. They're not individual pieces. They're nodes." The holographic display transformed, showing new connections between what they'd dismissed as space junk. Defunct satellites linked to broken rocket stages. Dead communication arrays connected to ancient spacecraft fragments. Each piece, carefully positioned over decades, formed part of a vast geometric pattern encircling the planet. "Show me the power signatures," Zixtal ordered. The image shifted again. What had appeared to be cold, dead metal now pulsed with subtle energy readings, each piece linked in a complex web of quantum entanglement. "Sir," Kix reported, his third eye twitching, "I found their launch records. Every failed satellite deployment, every accidental debris scatter. They were deliberate. They've been building this network for over 50 years. On the ISS, Lieutenant Williams made another minute adjustment. "Control, running diagnostic pattern, Echo 9. Might cause some interesting reflections in the thermosphere. Tell Colonel Martinez her coffee might get a light show of its own." The display showed a cascade of subtle power signatures rippling through the debris field. Each piece of junk responded, adjusting its position with precision that should have been impossible for inert objects. "That's not all," Vix added. "Their public space agency budgets, their civilian satellite programs, everything we assumed was primitive technology, was just the surface layer. Look at these power readings when I adjust for quantum masking." The holographic model exploded with new data. What had seemed like simple communications satellites now showed evidence of advanced targeting systems. Weather monitoring stations revealed complex sensor arrays. Even their primitive GPS constellation masked a network of quantum-linked defense platforms. "They built it all in plain sight," Kix whispered. "Every failed launch added new nodes. Every piece of debris became part of the network. The humans didn't just prepare for our arrival. They turned their entire orbital space into a weapon." Admiral Zixtal watched as Lieutenant Williams completed her maintenance, each casual movement precisely calibrating another part of Earth's hidden defense grid. Her next words sent a chill through his scales. "Control, calibration complete. Quantum resonance patterns matching historical simulations from Captain Anderson's stream last week. Funny how those theoretical models line up with real-world applications, isn't it?" In the Colorado station, Colonel Martinez glanced up at the sky, watching the subtle shimmer of the network activating. "Beautiful work, Kate. Coffee's on me when you get back down. The usual place." "Roger that," Williams replied. "The one with the great view of the stars. Speaking of which," she turned in space, looking directly at the Hegemony fleet's position. "The view up here is particularly interesting today. Lots of new variables to consider. The entire orbital network pulsed once, a ripple of power visible only to the hegemony's advanced sensors. Each piece of debris, each failed satellite, each broken rocket stage moved in perfect synchronization, forming new geometric patterns that their tactical computers recognized as advanced targeting solutions. "Sir," Kix reported, his voice barely a whisper, "they're not just ready for us. They've been building this trap for generations, and we just flew right into it." Admiral Zixtal watched as Lieutenant Williams began her return to the ISS, humming a tune that their cultural database identified as "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." Behind her, Earth's orbital defense grid continued its silent dance, each piece of space junk precisely where it needed to be. Commander James "Jimmy" Cooper sat in his favorite coffee shop in downtown Seattle, rain pattering against the windows. His laptop displayed what appeared to be a routine maintenance schedule for weather satellites. With deliberate casualness, he opened his email client and began typing. On the Hegemony flagship, alarms blared. "Admiral." The communications officer's membrane pulsed with panic. "We're receiving a transmission. It's coming through our classified command channel." Admiral Zixtal's scales rippled with disbelief. "Impossible. That frequency is quantum encrypted. Even our own colonies don't have access to." Subject line reads, "Regarding your parking job near Saturn," the officer reported. The message appeared on the main display. To fleet.command@hegemony.gov. From james.cooper@spaceforce.mil. Subject: Regarding your parking job near Saturn. Hey there. Hope you're enjoying the view. Just wanted to touch base about those structural weaknesses in your engine cores, particularly the quantum containment issue in ships number 17 through number 382. Our models suggest you're about 3 months away from a critical cascade failure in the fleet flagship. Might want to get that checked out. Attached are some detailed scans we took while you were busy waiting for us to panic. Love what you've done with the tachyon manifolds, though the power distribution could use some work. The recursive shielding algorithms are pretty elegant, but did you know you can increase efficiency by 23% if you adjust the variance by 0.03%? We published a paper on that back in 2019. Purely theoretical. Of course. Coffee's great at this little place I know in Seattle. They make a mean latte. Currently sitting here now if you'd like to discuss. Best regards, Jimmy. P.S. Tell Junior Officer Kix his pattern recognition is spot on. We've had a position open in our analytics department for someone with his skills. He P.S. attached. Detailed_fleet_analysis.pif, 2.3 gigabytes. Sir, Vix reported, her tendrils trembling. The attached analysis. It's complete. Down to the quantum level. They've mapped every system, every weakness, every potential failure point in our entire fleet. On screen, Commander Cooper took another sip of his latte, making a minor adjustment to what looked like a social media post. Instantly, 300 pieces of orbital debris shifted position by exactly 1 meter. Display his location, Zixtal ordered. The coffee shop appeared on screen, a cozy corner establishment with rain-streaked windows. Cooper sat near the window, the glow of his laptop illuminating his casual smile. Behind him, a bulletin board displayed local community notices and, oddly, a detailed technical drawing of the Hegemony's quantum shield matrix labeled Local Artists' Interpretation of Raindrop Patterns. Sir, Kix reported, we're detecting low-level quantum signatures throughout the building. That coffee shop, it's a command center. 67 of them. Actually, Vix added, we're finding similar signatures from coffee shops all over their planet. They've built a redundant command and control network disguised as a beverage distribution system. Cooper's phone buzzed. Colonel Martinez had texted, "How's the view from up there?" He glanced upward through the rain-streaked window, directly at the cloaked observation drone the Hegemony had positioned over Seattle. "Pretty good," he typed back. though our visitors might want to adjust their cloaking frequency. The rain reflection makes it look a bit fuzzy. In the Hegemony flagship, Admiral Zixtal watched as Commander Cooper opened the coffee shop's online review page and began typing. Great atmosphere, excellent line of sight to the upper atmosphere. Perfect spot for monitoring quantum fluctuations while enjoying a quality dark roast. The scones are also amazing. Note, the afternoon crowd can get a bit dense, especially around the rings of Saturn. 4, 5/5 stars. Sir, Kix said quietly. I don't think they've been ignoring us. They've been studying us. The whole time, from every coffee shop, through every piece of orbital debris, through every social media post and streaming channel. They've been taking us apart piece by piece. The display showed Cooper closing his laptop, stretching casually as he glanced at the local art diagram of their shield matrix. Hey Sarah, he called to the barista, think we should add some quantum variance patterns to the daily specials board. Our guests might find it interesting. Admiral Zixtal stared at the massive technical analysis attached to Cooper's email, each page revealing another perfectly documented weakness in his supposedly invincible fleet. The humans hadn't just been watching. They'd been reverse engineering every aspect of hegemony technology, all while appearing to do nothing more threatening than enjoy their daily coffee. Director Tom Reynolds of the Terran Defense Initiative sat in a small diner in Wisconsin, cutting into a slice of apple pie. The morning sun cast long shadows through the windows, highlighting the steam rising from his coffee cup. Behind him, a decades-old jukebox played, The Sound of Silence. More coffee, Han. The waitress, Betty, held up a pot of fresh brew. Thanks, Betty. Reynolds smiled, sliding his cup closer. Might have some guests joining us soon. Mind keeping the pot warm? On the Hegemony flagship, Admiral Zixtal stared at the latest message on his display. To fleet.command@hegemony.gov. From .reynolds@t.gov. Subject: Breakfast invitation. Good morning. Hope you've had time to review Commander Cooper's technical analysis. Betty's Diner off Highway 43 makes the best apple pie this side of the galaxy. Join me for breakfast. We can discuss your retreat options while enjoying some authentic Earth cuisine. Table by the window. Can't miss it. Best regards, Tom. P.S. Our orbital grid will power down for exactly 3.7 seconds at 900 local time. Just enough time for a single shuttle to land safely. Consider it a gesture of good faith. P.S. Lieutenant Williams sends her compliments on your fleet's quantum shielding modifications. The 0.03% adjustment really did help, didn't it? Sir, Junior Officer Kix reported, sensors detect a small establishment matching these coordinates. It's just a diner. The display showed the interior of Betty's Diner. Reynolds sat alone at his table, casually working on his pie while reading what appeared to be yesterday's newspaper. The headline read, Local stargazers report unusual activity near Saturn. Ice cream sales up 15%. Full tactical analysis, Zixtal ordered. That's just it, sir, Vix responded, her tendrils writhing. The building shows no military signatures, no quantum readings, no defense grid connections. It's just a diner, with exceptional pie, according to local reviews. Reynolds turned a page in his newspaper, revealing a crossword puzzle. He began filling it out. Across. 1. Hegemony shield frequency, 15 digits. 4. Tachyon containment variance. 7. Fleet commander's personal authorization code. Down. 2. Quantum resonance pattern. 3. Secondary command channel encryption key. Each answer was perfectly correct. Sir, Kix whispered, how does he know your personal authorization code? The same way they know everything else, Zixtal replied, his scales a pale shade of defeat. They'd been 10 steps ahead since before we arrived. The diner's jukebox switched songs. The times they are a-changin'. Reynolds checked his watch, an antique mechanical model that, according to their scans, contained more computing power than their flagship's main processors. He made a small note in the newspaper margin. Shuttle landing area cleared. Betty's coffee fresh. Pie still warm. Across Earth's orbital plane, thousands of pieces of space debris shifted position by exactly 1 meter, creating a clear flight path to the diner's parking lot. Admiral, Vix reported, we're detecting power signatures from their defense grid. They're creating a deliberate gap in their coverage. Exactly as promised, exactly enough space for one shuttle. Sir, Kix added, Director Reynolds just ordered a second slice of pie. Admiral Zixtel, veteran of 1,000 conquests, commander of the mightiest fleet in known space, stood from his command chair. For the first time in his career, he straightened his uniform not for battle, but for breakfast. Prepare my shuttle, he ordered. Sir, his tactical officer questioned. This could be a trap. Zixtel watched as Reynolds solved another crossword clue. Hegemony Admiral's preferred breakfast beverage, 8 letters. The answer read, Earl Grey. No, Zixtel said quietly. This isn't a trap. This is humanity showing us exactly how outmatched we've been from the start. He adjusted his collar. And they're doing it over pie. As his shuttle prepared for launch, Earth's orbital defense grid performed its promised dance, creating a perfect landing trajectory. In the diner, Betty set out a second cup and filled it with hot Earl Grey tea. The morning sun caught the chrome trim of the old jukebox as it began to play one final song. Welcome to the future.